Welcome to Let's Deconstruct a Story. I'm Kelly Forden, your host, and today we are thrilled to have Molly Dektar with us to talk about her short story, The Bed and Breakfast, which was first published in the Harvard Review and then in Best American Short Stories 2024. A little about Molly Dektar now. Molly is the author of two novels, The Absolutes and The Ash Family. Her short stories have been published in the Best American Short Stories 2024, the Yale Review, N+1, the Harvard Review, Ploughshares, and the Sewanee Review, among others. The recipient of a Dakin Fellowship from the Sewanee Writers Conference and a residency at Hawthornden, Brooklyn. She is from North Carolina and lives in Queens, New York. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
I just love this story. It's so atmospheric. I just love the age of Louise, the protagonist, and I thought you just did an amazing job of capturing her POV, and I just really wanted to start out talking about her point of view. It's told through her eyes, but obviously it's told from quite a distance because there's a little bit of modulation in the voice and a little bit of maturity. You can sense in the background you can't sense the author, but I'm just saying it's not told in present tense, it's told as a past tense. And I'm wondering how you came to that point of view, if that came to you first, and how you got the distance correct in terms of how much time had passed.
Yeah, it's a good question. I was reading Elizabeth McCracken's Craft book, and I think on point of view and distance, as well as the overall nature of reality in a story, I'm paraphrasing a lot. What I got from it was you have to create a consistency each time. You have to define it for yourself. There aren't a lot of hard and fast rules. So this story, there's part of me that wanted to write a lot of the point of view of an older person. I'm 36 now. My narrator is 10,
12.
11, 12 throughout the
Yeah.
story. And I had felt pressure to add in a lot of the distant voice, like the 36-year-old or the person approximately my age. But then I realized that just a touch of it here and there, so long as I'm consistent with it, is enough. There aren't any rules when it comes to retrospective voice.
Yeah.
The 10-year-old, or one of your questions for me later was, how did you decide to put the characters' ages later in the story instead of at the beginning? That was really a revision thing. And the reason why I keep saying 10-year-old is I have a different version of this story that I'm working into a novel. We'll talk about that as well. Where I said the summer that I was 10, my father began thinking about how to move to Italy, how to move the family to Italy and rehab this broken down farmhouse. So I think, summer when I was 10 is when it starts, and then she might be 11 or 12. And it really shows how many drafts the story went through that I can't even remember where I settled her age.
That's so fascinating to me because it is really hard to capture a girl at that age and what she would pick up on and what she wouldn't pick up on. So how many drafts did you go through?
So many. But again, I keep coming back to the age of 10 because I started writing in my daily journal when I was 10, and I've kept it up since then. So every single day of my life since age 10, I have documented in writing. It's far from thorough, but there's at least a little bit every day. And I recently went back and reread my journal from age 10 to try to figure out what I was up to. And I was mourning the loss of my childhood. And so that really influenced this narrator and her desire in the story. And I even so in the Best American thing, they had us write a little description of our story and how it came to be. And I thought I could read from my own journal at age 10 to explain what voice
I would love that. I would love it.
Just a tiny bit, but this is
Yeah.
the kind of thing I was writing. At age 10, I wrote, I want to be young again, to have an imagination, to love, to care, to hope, to not know worry, to be innocent. My sister won't play anymore. She says it's babyish. My own sister is drifting from me. And I was rereading this. I was I was 10. I had a lot of innocence and playtime still ahead of me. But
that is so funny.
That tone, you really feel that in the narrator, too. She's on the cusp of losing her playful relationship with her brothers. She's figuring out what power she has to manipulate some of the other characters or half manipulate them. She feels less innocent. She feels more in control of things, but she's also idealistic and still hoping to see a unicorn, for example. So it's a really interesting age when you're just stepping into puberty. And it
is. Yeah. So, okay, tell me about the drafting. So when you draft, this is just a question maybe other creative writers who are listening to this will want to know, is when you're drafting a story and you think you have it done, what do you do then? Would you send it out first, or would you sit on it for a while and then come back to it? And in between all those drafts, what were you doing?
Yeah, sit and come back, sit and come back.
Okay.
One of my
Never send it out.
No, I don't. I know. I wait and wait. Everything is steeping. It's like I have a bunch of stories in pickling jars all the time. Zadie Smith said the way to write a good novel is write your novel and then put it in a drawer for 5 years. This isn't a novel, of course, but
Right.
I really do think that I am smarter when I'm like over time than I am in the moment of writing. So if I can give myself 6 months and revisit, another 6 months and revisit, the story will continue to gain complexity as I revisit it. Another thing I do is so after I have a draft, I do let it sit and steep for a long time. And then I always bring it to my little writing group. One of the members of the writing group is Catherine Dam, who you had on this very.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
She's
Wow.
brilliant and her story is
Yeah.
amazing and hilarious. So I'm very lucky. Yeah, I have her eyes on.
Have you known her? Have you known her since school? Because didn't she go to Harvard
Yes,
too? Yeah.
she did. We knew each other a little bit, but have gotten to
Okay.
know each other more through our writing group.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's part of it, and then after the writing group, let it sit for longer, and then eventually I send it out.
Okay. That's good because I think a lot of times it's hard to tell when something's finished, and then if the writing group says it's finished and then you get the feeling it's finished, then you will finally send it out, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but even so, it's
Okay.
continued to evolve, and even as I reread it for this interview, I'm like, "Oh, why did I write that she was going to high school? She should be in middle." I still notice
Oh,
things that need to
right.
be fixed.
Oh, that's so good.
It
That's
never
good to
ends.
know.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got the feeling, and I know I sent you questions, but then I riff a little bit off of those. The dad, it seems like everything is revolving around dad. I like to do this thing where I write down how many times people are mentioned in a story, and I think I sent you that just to see if I'm really picking up on, and I actually do it with different other mentions in the story, like all of the mentions of webs and all of the mentions of clouds and things like that, because sometimes I feel like I miss things if I don't actually count it. But so the father or dad or Peter is mentioned 76 times, Claudio is mentioned 57 times, and mom 43 times. And that was aligned with what I thought was happening in the story. I think everything is revolving around dad, right? And I was trying to get a sense of what was really going on with him because he has so many eccentricities, but everything in the entire story wavered on dangerous, but never tipped into dangerous, it felt to me. So, when you were conceiving him, what were you thinking his story was? Was he deluded, immature, a little of both?
Yeah, I think so. I think deluded and immature are totally fair. One thing I always try to abide by, and I think every character in every story, if they're a good character, I try to make them 51% good. And if they're bad, evil, whatever, 51% evil. Everyone needs to be just teetering on the edge of some. And so, yeah, I think I'm not sure exactly where the dad and Claudio ended up, but the dad's desire is definitely the motivating desire of the story. And there are so many things that went into me wanting to write this story, but I think the major dominant thing I wanted to explore in it was the dad character, specifically how he changed the way he dressed and then changed back. So I was working on a farm in Western North Carolina, talking to this farmer who was hosting me, and she had like a really bad breakup with her ex, and he had done this thing where he went from wearing, like very conventional modern clothes to sort of dressing in this old-timey fashion that was somehow divorced from old-timey religion or anything. He just like had a desire to dress in like, formal old-fashioned clothes. And
Yeah,
that,
because I
yeah,
mentioned, or I noticed that in the story, they don't have mustaches, just like as if, or he didn't have a mustache, just like he was Amish or something.
exactly.
He's very specific. Yeah.
And the farmer told me that when they, like finalized their separation, he went back to his old clothes, his, tie-dye shirts and stuff. I was like, "Oh, someday I'm just going to write." That was like 2017 I heard that. I was like, "Someday I'm going to write a story about that exact thing." So I
And
think
the
when
weirdest, the weirdest thing about that was that he goes to Italy where he should be wearing the white shirt and the pants, like where I feel like everybody dresses so much nicer than they do in the States, and instead he's wearing the tie-dye there. So it was bizarre, but it worked for him because he
Yeah.
was strange. Yeah.
Yeah. He's trying to sort of find himself and settle within himself. And he takes on this project that's way too big for him. Another, like, well, sort of the structure of the story is all about, like, are they going to repair this house in time? Are they going to, or repair, this broken down farmhouse in time for the cold? And from the first draft of the story, I knew the father was going to really struggle with the onset of cold because everyone who ever fixes up a house is like, oh my God, it was so much more expensive and so much more difficult than I thought. So I knew he was kind of like wrestling, this huge project. And also he's sort of tortured by his own sense of like the person he wants to be, the person he was in North Carolina, the person he wants to become in Italy. And so
Yeah.
he's a powerful force in the story and certainly
But he's not like, I mean, did you think of him as I guess he's just mildly deluded and mildly
yes, I
immature,
never
but he's
thought of
not.
him as full on like narcissistic
Oh,
evil
you didn't?
anything.
Okay, because I was like,
No,
is he a narcissist? Or no,
that's not
um
how I thought of him. Someone else.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. I mean, I think the mother, she just can't get through to it. It just seemed like, I guess the narcissistic traits that I saw were the kids, they're definitely seem hungry. There's no hot food. And their biggest excitement are these eggs. Like they love having the and I thought, like, that's so sad. You actually have to be pretty hungry to be happy eating all these eggs. So for him to ignore all of that stuff and then, at the end of the story when the kids, not to get ahead of us, but when they say they made that pact, they're never going to say anything again because they're not going to cause a problem again with the parents. I mean, I felt like that was fairly sad. So all of those things led me to believe he was very self-involved.
Yes. Yes. Trying
Yeah.
to find himself, sort of a midlife crisis, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's good. And how did you come up with the house sandwich? I love that.
Research, honestly.
Oh,
I
really?
I have been very compelled by, like, especially, like, content of people buying old sort of, like, crumbling, castles or whatever in Europe and fixing them up. It is a fantasy of mine, and so I was looking into it more and yeah, a lot of people talk about get the roof in foundation, and it's not, more than one source referred to it as a sandwich, so I adopted this research language, for
I love that. That's great. Yeah, and now you can watch a ton of people on TikTok or Instagram
exactly.
redoing
They're
their
all like,
houses.
"Here's my French, like, estate house that I bought
Right.
for $400,000."
Yeah, I
Um,
know, and then it's like, $1 million to redo it or
absolutely,
whatever.
yeah.
Okay, so so they moved from North Carolina and then they moved to and the Italian landscape is completely different than the North Carolina landscape. And I'm always curious when I talk to different writers what comes first for them when they're drafting a story. So is it easy for you to do that kind of scene setting? Are those visualizations coming to you, the stars in the web, the more geometrical shapes in Italy versus the green and smooth shapes in North Carolina, or is that coming later for you in the drafting of the story?
It's always first and easiest for me.
Wow.
Writing, like, slightly imprecise, like, metaphors about nature, it's just I was born to do it.
Oh,
Um
isn't that so funny how it's so different for everybody?
It is,
I love
yeah.
that.
What I
Yeah.
really struggled with here, and I looked back at my drafts to prepare for this, I'm like,
Mhm.
add a scene between the parents, dialogue scene between parents, because I don't really like writing scenes and dialogue. Like, if it were up to me, it would just be like, what do you call it, summary, like, no
Yeah, yeah.
dialogue, and it would just be descriptions of nature and, like, the happiest days of my writing life where there was one day when I wrote 8,000 words in a day just in a fever, and it was all people it's always someone getting lost in nature and overwhelmed by nature,
Right.
someone going out on a moor and almost freezing to death, or in my first novel, The Ash Family, it starts with someone going on an ill-advised hike alone and getting lost, and yeah. So this stuff about,
And describing the whole thing. Wow.
what do you say?
Do you have a background in No, no, you just have an English. background?
Yeah.
Did you take any botany classes or
No,
anything?
I just
No?
love, I don't know. It might go back to the journal again. It's just, yeah, it's really and I talked to Catherine Dam about this. I think she loves writing dialogue and is supernatural with that and has to remind herself to add in visuals and
And
setting.
cues?
And for me,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just all setting and I struggle to do the rest.
Isn't that wild? Yeah,
Yeah.
I could do just dialogue. The whole thing could be dialogue, and they're floating in space,
Yeah.
and nothing's around them. So
Yeah.
that's wild. Okay, let's talk about Claudio. So I love that we're introduced to him just as Louise is having her hair lopped off. And that was another scene where I was like, Dad is not paying attention, but her braids are crackling like fire, which was a great visual. And her father just seems to be disregarding her feelings, but Claudio's taking her seriously. And he initially seemed to me like a savior figure, but you just described to us how you have that 51% good.
Yes.
And then he turns out to be a bigot. So did you know that that was coming in it was a great turn in the story and it really complicated his character when he makes that remark. And it really struck me because that can happen so often in real life. You really like someone and then all of a sudden they say something and you view them completely differently. So did you, when you were drafting the story, think, I don't know, how did it come to you at that moment?
Yeah. I was thinking about the ways that their neighbors would realistically react to them parachuting into a part of Italy without really bright economic prospects. And they're doing something complicated. They're both repairing and restoring this historic place, but they're also going to use it to create the fantasy of Italy for tourists. And I thought that for them, being a white family certainly paves their way and
I know.
brings greater acceptance because when I lived in Italy as an exchange student at the age of 15, then I went back and volunteered on a bunch of farms there. I studied dunk. I've been to Italy many times, and given where they are positioned and stuff, there's a lot of immigrants coming in from all different places, some of whom really don't look Italian the way that white
Right.
Americans do. And in Italy, with its traditions and long history and its conservatism, a lot of the Italians I met are struggling with what it means to accept immigrants. And so it
Yeah.
was partly informed by conversations I've had with Italians, partly this almost, it's like gentrifying in a way, or it's like claiming a heritage that isn't theirs. But at the same time, Claudio really knows the place and he has deep roots there and he wants to be helpful. So, yeah, I knew that there had to be a neighbor and there had to be some conflict, some issue with them, but can't just be smooth.
Right.
And where I settled with him felt also true to my experience there.
And again, another moment where the narrator is perfect in so many ways because when she says to him, and I'm not going to find, she says something like, I also don't know how I feel about immigrants or something like that. I don't have I wish I had it right in front of me, but I don't want to waste the time.
Yeah.
She says something along those lines. And when she repeats to him the bigotry, basically, it just has such impact. And I felt like perhaps it would have impact for him as well. And he says to her, "Don't become an old man before your time." And it's
Yes.
so perfect. And it really struck me. And I think anytime you see something through the eyes of a child, it just has more weight. I don't really have a question at the end of that, but
No, it's tough with children because they see and understand so much, and then there's also so much they miss or so much they're learning. So, yeah, writing a kid who's not a prodigy but feels real, yeah, it's
it's tough.
it's a bit risky, and I don't usually do it, but for this story, yeah, it felt right.
It worked so well. So when she keeps describing herself as manipulative, that was another thing I was wondering, she has this perception of herself as manipulative, and I felt like that she perceived herself that way because her parents or her father in particular found her needs exhausting. Because she says in several parts, no one ever gave me much attention or sympathy. And then she cries after her father cuts her hair. And she says that her reaction is a mixture of true emotion and conceit, suggesting that she knows she can elicit a reaction from Claudio at least. And so it is interesting so I'm just curious what you thought about her manipulation.
Yeah, I think she's growing up and starting to test her own power. And same thing with eventually she'll find her mother in a compromised situation. I have the no spoilers.
Everybody's supposed to have read it beforehand,
Great.
so they know
Yeah,
there will
it
be
would probably
spoilers.
make less sense if you hadn't. Yeah, so she'll
Yes.
find that her mother has run off with Claudio, and her reaction there, she's in some ways a little bit more mature than her mother. She said,
Right.
my mother can still tell me what to do. Like, she's still my mom. But this character, Louisa, is starting to learn that she can also get adults to do what she wants. But she also, so she's testing her power, but I also think she wants to veil. She wants to be considered a good girl. So she wants plausible deniability and nothing garish and stuff. So that's where the manipulation comes in. It's searching for attention and searching for sympathy without doing anything like, give me attention, give me sympathy.
Right.
She's trying to move through the world and shape it without getting in trouble or feeling like a bad person. These are all complex emotions of childhood that, again, felt true to my own life. I think because of this journal, I tend to write very much from my own life. And I remember as I started to learn, I can have this posture of a good girl. As you start to lose your innocence where you're just acting on instinct like my toddler does these days, and you realize that you can shape the way people perceive you. Those are just more like levels of adolescence I wanted to explore in this story.
So in your journal, do you have all of your thought processes of what you could get away with and what you couldn't get away with at that age? What a resource to have all of that information about
Yeah.
how you felt back then.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Everybody should do that, but
Oh, I
it's
know,
so
it's
hard.
amazing. It's really surprising. I remember when I started the journal, I was like, I'm already old. Too bad I didn't record my childhood. But of course, from this distance, I'm like, there's so much growing that happens there, and
Wow.
truly bizarre switches back and forth from teddy bears in one sentence to
Poison
like
or whatever.
tragic news, horrible news about wars, and then back to bear. It's
You're
the levels of
right.
sophistication very wildly.
Yeah, yeah. That is so funny. You just forget. And that modulation, I assume that your writing group was a real help with that as well. Like when you would read things, would they say, this seems like it's too old for her or not old enough?
Yes, absolutely. I think these are areas where it really helps to have outside readers.
Mhm.
Yeah, does this ring true? Did any of it stick out as too old or too young? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you understand, where we were emotionally in the story? Like all that stuff. I really need that outside.
Feedback. Yeah. When she finds her mom in Claudia's bed, first of all, I love the fact that you set up the pink slip so that they saw the pink slip before and then it comes back again. And I love the fact that Lewis just can't handle even seeing the pink slip, that he gets really freaked out by that because that's so perfect to the age, too.
Yeah.
But anyway, she sees her mom, and then her first thought is, oh, he picked her over me. And I thought, oh my God. I love when you're reading a story and the character says something and it seems like it's the next level. It's not the obvious thing that you think the character's going to say. It's a deeper level, and you have the feeling that the writer has gone much further in than the average writer, if that makes sense. I'm having trouble describing it, but you get that feeling like, oh my God, I felt that. And that's so true. And I always feel like those are the writers who write through 17 drafts. So that's the 17th draft reaction.
Yeah.
So that felt so perfect for her. And I'm wondering, how did they react to that moment when she says, I'm sure your writing group was probably like, this is perfect.
Oh, I
'Cause
hope
it's
so.
very it's sophisticated in some ways. She's not freaked out by her mom being there. So on some level, she realizes her mom has been through a lot and
Yeah.
can't take much more.
Yeah. Yeah, and she sees the Claudio seems so organized and safe, and he has this little beautiful cabin, and yeah, she wants to be there. And then of course there's a note of wrongness in that too, a note again of growing up and the kind of he's an adult man. Yeah, and one of the questions you asked later is about what I'm working on now, or whether this project ever felt like it was going to become a novel. And the answer is like yes, yes, and yes.
Yes.
I had to stay with this character, Louisa, and follow her into her teenage years and beyond. And that's actually the novel I'm working on now. And it was something I wanted to explore more too, not when you're this young, but as you get older. Another way she's testing her power. And again, her huge desire in this story is to be close with her brothers. She loves her brothers and can feel that as they move to Italy, they're also drifting into adolescence, and they're losing that tightness and that feeling of being just like one body, one core. It's all falling apart. And so this
Right.
character Louisa is very motivated by tight connections to people. And I wanted to see Louisa in love, Louisa
Right.
flirting. What happens then? So
Yeah. So how far along are you now?
I'm pretty far along with, yeah, this ended up, a version of this and distributed ended up as a chapter in that project. And the whole thing is with my agent now. So I'm
Oh,
hoping that
great.
soon enough, perhaps we'll be able to send it to my editor and see what she thinks.
And so what age does it take her to in the novel?
To her 50s. Goes all
Wow.
the way. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But you're
I
like, I
can't
mean,
wait. Oh, I can't wait. I
yeah,
want
but
to
you
ask a
notice
lot
that
of
moment
questions.
where Claudio chose my mom and not me or whatever. I was also like, there's more for me to explore in this.
Well, exactly, because I thought, okay, that's the pivotal moment where he would still choose mom, but that is will change very quickly because mom is on one end of that spectrum and she's on the other.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to find out more about that. Does it take place in Italy? Most of
Yeah,
it?
it half and half. The other half of the book is so Louisa ends up running this bed and breakfast. Yeah, they succeed. The father sets it up. They have a business, and then a woman comes and visits her, and they form this weird friendship.
Oh,
So we
cool.
have two female characters journeying through life in parallel.
Oh, nice. Oh, I can't wait. I hope it comes soon.
Yeah, I hope it works.
um,
I wrote an entire novel at one point in my life that not a single editor wanted to acquire. So it's happened to me, and it could happen anytime.
I think it happens to everybody
Yeah.
for sure, but hopefully not with this one because I wanna see what happens to her too. Okay, so what about and then this is just another moment where you got the age perfect. She has the difference in the hugs between and I didn't have this in our questions, but the difference in the hugs between mom's hug and Claudio's hug, and his has the zing to it. And I did wonder at times throughout the story how Claudio was viewing Louise. He says, "I wish I had a daughter like you." So I think but we've had so much in the news recently about poor girls being
Yes.
yeah, so I think it's pretty innocent with him, but it seemed like she maybe had a little bit of a crush on him or
Yes. Yes,
yeah,
exactly. I never thought of him as, lecherous,
right,
but I did think, he's lonely, he's curious, he's excited by this new family and, like, the freshness. Yeah,
right.
he's lonely.
He's lonely. He's lonely, but not dangerous.
Yeah.
And then but, another moments that were just, so subtle is that when, we kind of realize dad is concerned about Claudio when mom wears the shirt under her overalls, which I guess she doesn't always do, and, and then he tells Louis to fix her shirt, which has come open in another scene, and that was interesting too because on some level, Louise must note these things and realize there's something behind them, but she sort of states it like a reporter, like she's reporting on their behavior with no commentary about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually just got back from this wonderful, I got to teach a class in Baltimore and give a reading. And as I went to Baltimore, I was preparing, like, what are the very, like, best pieces of writing advice I ever got in my life? Like, these are the things I want to share with the students. And one of them, which I use in this story and in everything I write, is this idea of, well, repetition and evolution is one thing, and then the other thing is light your fuses before your bombs go off. So with repetition and evolution, I want to see like the same objects, the same props in the story come up over and over again. So there's like the pink slip that you mentioned before.
Uh-huh.
Like if it comes up later, it needs to come up earlier too. And then, similarly, fuses and bombs, it's kind of like a different way of saying foreshadowing. But I didn't want it to be a complete surprise that there was a little bit of a vibe between Claudio and the mother, and then the mother ends up in the bed. There have to be some moments where Claudio and the father are at odds, and you can see the mother veering towards Claudio. There have to be moments that suggest that it's possible that the mother's wandering towards him and interested in him. So those are things that I went. It's almost like I finish a draft of the story, and then I go back through and make sure that the objects I have in the story hold their own weight and will be repeated. Same thing with the gelato here. There's 2 gelato moments. There's a couple
Yes.
moments with money. Things like that.
There's the clouds and the green spider.
Clouds and spider.
That's fascinating. So that comes to you late. You go back and you make sure that you've got all that going on.
Yeah, I
Okay.
try to eliminate there's a million jillion details in any story, but I try
Right.
to make sure that enough is coming back and coming back, both for the sake of the foreshadowing and just so the objects that are in the story can accrue meaning, because you only have a few pages to make this whole meaningful world. So, yeah.
All right. What are some of the other ones that we haven't talked about yet? Let me see here. Okay. The spider green clouds and the spider. So what was your thought behind the spider green clouds and the spider?
Yeah. Again, spider green clouds, like describing. So a lot of the story takes place during a drought, and they're hoping the drought is terrible for the farm, but it's good because it means their house won't get rained in.
Yeah.
And then when the clouds finally come in, they have this threatening aspect. Again, for me, what in terms of killing my darlings, everything I write could be like a fantasia of nature description that isn't quite coherent. So that was one that I allowed myself because all this time I've spent in Italy, when I was living in a place much like this, there were these huge spiders that you would see weaving these gorgeous webs, and it really stuck with me. And I was thinking, if you think of the Louise Bourgeois spiders, like these
Mhm.
huge, like craggy, they're long, jagged legs like lightning too. And it just felt natural to link together these not just uncanny and harmful inhabitants of the landscape, but also their house building, like the spider,
Right.
the
Yeah.
spiders building
They're building beautiful
a
houses.
trap slash house. Yeah, but I don't think of it as I'm writing. I'm never going, ooh, symbol. Like it
Yeah.
works out later.
Yeah. Well, it's fun when your mind surprises you with these symbols.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
surprise. It's one of the great joys of writing. And I'm like, oh, I did write 3 spider webs already. Okay. That is
Right.
a subconscious thing happening. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I read in an interview with you that you said you like to have a loose hold on the story, and I wondered what you meant by that as
Yeah.
well. I've heard that over and over again from writers I've talked to, so
Really.
I yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so
That's
I
our
wanna hear what you mean by that.
just this. I mean, I never Yeah. I start with things that are swirling in my mind that don't really connect, and I write a story, and I never define for myself the meaning of the story. I never say the story is about something. I It's more like if the story is populated, and then I let it sit, and then I don't know what I'm saying, but I think I'm just saying I let things be unexplained to myself. I don't
Yes.
try to tie down what it all means and why all the details are there. It's like a process of reacting and reacting to my own work without ever trying to dig in and explain. And it's funny when you are so lucky as to have people read your work. Sometimes people send me an interpretation of my novel and it's like, is this what you were thinking? I'm like, not really. I was weirdly floated away from it in a way. That's what I mean by
But then that's one of the hardest things I think, just I'm speaking for myself, but I assume for other people who are trying to learn how to write fiction is to allow that kind of just to have that light grasp on what's happening, because
yeah,
I think at some point people will be drafting something and they'll be 3 or 4,000 words in and they'll think, I have no idea what this is about. It has to be about something. I'm going to steer it this way. And and you're not the first person that I've talked to who said, I just like to be surprised by by what's
yeah,
happening, and I want to allow for strangeness, and I think that's something that I bet in most creative writing classes the kids would not expect to hear.
yeah. Yeah, because then it's also confusing. It's okay, if you're allowing for strangeness and being surprised, what exactly are you doing? How do you decide what to
Right.
put
You're
Yeah.
just rambling on and on and
Yeah,
on,
like
seeing
how
yeah.
does it cohere? But I do think that using repetition and evolution and using fuses and bombs and making sure the characters have something to want and then bringing your piece to a writing group, all these are different ways that in the end I do have some intentional craft in there and some feedback and ways to modify it, even as I myself don't know quite what I'm writing.
So in the end, when you got to the end of the story, what did you feel like it was about for you?
I in the end Yeah, good question. In the end,
Mhm.
I thought it was about Louisa's desire to keep her family together and that to me is the clearest desire. The dad wants to change his life radically, go back to traditional ways, be a different person. have his family have a different kind of life or whatever. But all those things are still a little bit hard for me to grasp. But the
Mm,
desire of Louisa to keep her brother, this is why earlier you mentioned she and her brothers make a pact, like a pact to not disturb the parents if something bad
right,
happens in the house. And that could be seen as sad, but for Louisa, that's amazing. That's what she wants. She really wants to be in a conspiracy of trust with her brothers.
okay, interesting.
Yeah, she wants to be close with them. And even as I talk, I'm thinking about she wants attention and how she's testing her power and powers of manipulation and stuff. All of that wouldn't be necessary to her if she felt as close with her brothers as she wants to feel. She's setting out her own path now in the world.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a story of Louisa's desire to keep her family close even as they're all drifting apart. But
And it does say
about a
that
lot
at
of
one
things.
I know it does say that at one point where she says, "It feels like we're just barely tethered together." So, okay, I know this always happens, and then I'm like, "We're running out of time, and I have so many more questions." So, that is something fascinating. I will say that I was so focused on the dad, the parents, and I was focused on her the way that she was sort of deciding how manipulative to be or how or what kind of person to be when she takes the money from Claudio and
Yeah.
she says to her mom, "I'm gonna take the money," and her mom is like, "Okay." What were what did you I'll back up and just say, what did you think her mother was thinking in that moment? "Okay, I better let her have something because I'm in this compromised situation."
I think the mom was feeling very immature and embarrassed and was weirdly letting her daughter, for the first time in her life, probably, like, have the upper hand. I Both of them are doing something,
Out of
amoral.
character. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, there's some stealing and there's some cheating, and I think the mother just felt yeah, she felt humiliated, and she also felt like her daughter had owned this secret now, had some leverage, and I think the mother shouldn't have gone up there with Claudio, but I also think she was so overwhelmed with her own, like, adult feelings of shame that she forgot, as
Right.
Louisa says, forgot that she can still steer and teach her daughter things. It was
And
a weak
and she
moment.
does yeah, and she does say that she doesn't even know if she would've her mother would have come back at all if she hadn't seen the effect it was having on her daughter,
Yeah,
which is a scary thought.
yeah, yeah. But in a way, it's a triumph for Louisa because she does manage to bring the family back together.
So throughout the story, she has a lot of power in some instances. She does take the gelato, but of course it melts.
Yeah.
And then she has to give the money back. Oh, and we never found out so that was another question I had that I almost forgot to ask here. She takes the money, but we never hear what the dad if she gives it to her dad, if he does anything with the money. Did
In
you
my
intentionally leave that?
Yeah, I guess it was one of those details I didn't fill out, and as the story went through its courses of revision, even with the Harvard review, it felt okay, I think, to everyone to leave it open. But I
Mhm.
envision that the dad and the mom are gonna have an honest conversation. Louisa stole money. Okay, we gotta give it back to Claudio, because Claudio is very far from well-to-do. He has his perfect little one room, but yeah,
Right.
I believe that they would have given it back and that that
Totally.
was a
Yeah.
lie Louisa couldn't get away with. Oh, yeah, I won it at school? No, I don't think so, at Italian public.
€100 is a lot
Yeah.
of money back then. Okay, I had a question about the story being over 7,000 words, though, and was that hard to place at the time? It's a longer story because
Yeah.
you just have to know where to send a longer story, but
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of places have word limits, and I think that in my heart, I'm a novelist and I love to expand and,
Right.
add in the details and sit in the setting, and so, yeah, so it
Yeah.
was long. I'm just really grateful that the Harvard Review took it.
That's great.
The whole thing is a surprise. Whenever I get an acceptance, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what a surprise," and the fact that it got in the Best American was also, like,
I know.
surprising to me. You never know. But yeah, I'm glad that at this length it could find its home because I actually did try to cut it down and I couldn't. I'm sure I did cut it down from probably it was like 8,000, but still it felt hard to cut it even more.
Yeah, it felt like everything was intrinsic. You couldn't have gotten rid of anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I tried to use it to apply for who knows what residency or something with, and I had to just abandon ship and do a different story because it was just like, which bit should I cut? And maybe that's a
Yeah,
sign that the story is finished, that you've done it if there's not a thing you can think of to cut.
exactly. Since we are almost out of time, let me ask you, is there any advice that you gave everyone in Baltimore that we that you want to give here before we leave
There
to
literally is.
writers?
There
Okay,
is.
good,
I want to
good.
give you guys my very best advice.
Awesome.
I even wrote this. I think I even wrote it into the absolutes because it was so fundamental to me learning how to write and still to this day writing. It's like a scenario from a business book that I think my college boyfriend told me. He said, so imagine two different groups of people. There's a group of people who are put in a room with some clay, some sculpting clay, and they're told that they have a set period of time, maybe an hour, to make the most perfect pot they can. And then there's a group of people who go in another room with clay, and they're told they have an hour to make as many pots as they can. The people who make the many pots end up with some pots that are way worse and some pots that are way better than the people who spent the whole time trying to just make one perfect pot. That he was whoever, I think it
I
was.
love that.
Yeah, where I'm going with this. Like,
Yes.
I need the many pots. I'm constantly making pots. And when I describe how I let my story sit and steep, it's because I'm just churning out pots. I never know. I can't judge the quality in advance. I'm not the kind to, I might be the kind, but I've trained myself away from agonizing over writing the perfect story. But it's just about trying, and trying again. And sometimes the magic will be there. Sometimes it won't. Who am I to judge even? It helps me get away from this, cramped perfection mindset and towards, so long as I'm writing and trying and writing and trying, that's going to bring me towards my perfect pot.
So specifically, would you just start on a story, write until it loses momentum for you, put it aside, start another story? How often is this taking place? Like a couple times
Yeah.
a week or
Oh, I wish a
um,
couple times a week.
yeah,
Just because of the way my life is now, if I write 3 stories in a year, I'm like, "Yes, good year." But
yeah,
over
okay.
time, it adds up, and now I do have probably at least 6 or so that are in progress. I revise them gradually. I try sending them out. Depending on if they get taken out, I revise them again. Yeah, I do like to try to write. I try to write a full draft at least and then pause, but I also have so many documents of things I've cut or stories I've started and never finished. And my old novel draft that couldn't sell, I've chopped it up into pieces and I'm working on those. And yeah, I'm just producing a lot of pots over here.
I
But
think that's fantastic. Yeah, and I love the fact that you can use things from years ago. Sometimes you'll just come across them in a file and the whole thing will start up again and
exactly.
yeah, yeah, nothing you should not throw anything out.
Yes. And we're
Yeah,
lucky because, yeah, we don't, it's not like making a painting where you covered it up and, oh, it's gone. You can reuse it.
exactly. All right, is there anything I didn't ask you that you thought for sure I was going to? Because sometimes I get carried away and then I miss some main question.
No, this was amazingly thorough, and just
Okay.
thank you so much. I love the exact kinds of things you get into with the writers on your podcast are things I always want to hear about too. So I'm really honored to be here and grateful for this conversation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to have you, and I can't wait for everyone to hear this. So thank you so
Have
much.
a great rest of your day in France. Great rest of
Okay.
your day, Kelly.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye, Mom.